Cachamaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
I'm the bad cop with Daryl W4 back for the 79th episode of the GeoGearHeads on Independence Day here in the U.S. Now, that's some serious dedication. Other shows would have taken the day off, but not us.
And other shows did take the day off, but my day has been really busy because I started out with a couple of hours of Wallaby at like 4-something in the morning, followed by a few hours of caching and a family event, then a 4th of July party at a friend's home. And so now I'm back here to record the show, and I'm a little bit tired.
Wallaby at 4 in the morning?
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when
talk.
They release new items. You know, I've got to go out and get the new items.
Now, I myself have just done a few projects around the house today. We like to stay home on the 4th, so we have the opportunity to walk just a couple of blocks down the hill and get a great view of the fireworks show. And my entrepreneurial son is selling soda and water at the corner to the hundreds of people that walk by. So I've stayed busy building a 2-person swing. So I guess you could say I'm ready to rock. And I finished installing a screen door on my submarine.
On your submarine, huh?
Oh, I mean house. Sorry.
Okay. Well, not next week, but the week after that, we're actually going to be talking again with Rich Owings of GPS Tracklog about the current GPSRs and what might be coming. We also have some great shows we're working to schedule, like the Wallaby folks on August 15th, and Leave No Trace before that. To stay up to date, you can watch our Google Plus page for all of those events, and that includes any new shows we might schedule before then. Before our next show, or in between, or after, whatever. Anytime we schedule those shows, they're going to appear on that Google Plus page. So you can send us the comments, questions, tips, tricks, corrections if you wanted, or any kind of feedback that you'd like by calling 206-350-3647, or email us at geogearheads@cachamaniacs.com.
Have I ever mentioned that I love getting feedback?
I think you have.
I love getting feedback. Just in case you haven't heard me say it, I love getting feedback. Know what? We got a little bit today.
Yes, we did, actually.
We heard from Eric at Groundspeak about some of the pushes they're making over the next few weeks to get people out geocaching, and we want to share those dates with you. They'll be posting more on these shortly after this show hits the feeds. Now, first is Geocaching Get Outdoors Day. That's Saturday, July 13th. If you log a found it or attended log on any geocache type, you'll earn a unique souvenir for Geocaching Get Outdoors Day for your geocaching profile. Then for the entire month of August, have I told you I really like August? Because I really like August. They're doing the Days of Geocaching. Geocaching.com is challenging people to complete a geocaching streak throughout the entire month of August. Each day, geocachers will have the opportunity to earn a unique calendar-styled souvenir representing the date by logging a found it or attended geocache. For that, you might want to look back to GeoGearHeads number 72 when we talked about streaking. And we're talking about geocaching streaking there. I just want to make sure that's clear. Finding geocaches in a sequence. We talked with Casey Smiths about executing a geocaching streak. And the big one is August 17th. That's International Geocaching Day. If you post a found it or attended log for any geocaching.com cache that day, you'll earn the International Geocaching.com souvenir. So if you're into souvenirs, there's plenty of opportunities coming up. And I'll let you know, last year's International Geocaching Day souvenir is still the lock screen on my phone. I like it that much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I have the feeling that you read some of that right out of Eric's email that he sent to us, too.
No, I didn't. I didn't even get to email today. I've been working outdoors, so that was all me. Eric and I kind of think alike, don't we?
There you go. Pretty impressive. But yeah, I have to admit that I am thinking of trying that 31 days of caching thing
Hmm.
because it might be fun to try to go on another one of those streaks and see how long I can keep it going. So I'll probably go a little longer. But Badcap, you're going to be at the block party on the 17th, correct?
You better believe it. A groundspeak party in my backyard? You better believe I'm going. Now, in the past, I've had a booth at the event, and that's a great way to meet listeners and other geocachers. It should be great weather. Wits and I will be there on the campus of Groundspeak's latest office. Daryl, you and I should try to do a live feed from the block party. If the gods of the Wi-Fi's will be working well enough to host a hangout that day, we'll have to give it a try. Now, if our listeners are going to the event, stop by and say hi to us, and maybe even get your face on the interwebs for all to see.
Yeah, we might not be able to do a full hangout on air, but at least if we could use the Hangout cell phone, I can kind of virtually attend.
There you go. Well, we'll do something to get together, either on the phone or we'll try a hangout. I'll bring my own Wi-Fi hotspot, so it'll be limited traffic. But still, you get that many people together with all their cell phones. Anything going over the airwaves is hard to do, unreliable.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that really stinks about any of these major geocaching events is no matter what you do, it tends to get enough people with smartphones in the area who want to use lots of data because, us geocachers do like to use data service. And tends to clog up the airwaves, and it's a lot easier to clog up those airwaves than it is the pipes that come into your home.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, we're not talking Mother's Day that we're going to shut down all the phone lines, but even so, you get that many geocachers in an area and phone service becomes an issue. But you know what? We're going to give it a shot.
Hey, it doesn't hurt to try.
And we'll talk from there.
Sounds like a great plan. But today we are going to be talking about geocaching by yourself. Caching alone, caching solo, whatever you want to call it. What do you do when you go out geocaching by yourself? And I want to kick this off with a comment that we actually received from Team GeoFrog via Google+, and he wrote in, "I almost always cache alone, even on long bike or hiking trips. I tell my wife the general location I'm going to be caching in. I don't wear headphones as I want to hear what's going on around me, and I always keep my eyes peeled. There's many a time I came close to stepping on a snake. We have rattlesnakes and copperheads here. I haven't seen any bears yet, but they are common." Well, thank you very much for that feedback and some excellent points about geocaching safety. And one of the things that I did actually write back and ask is if he had any apps or anything on his phone that he was using, because we're the GeoGearHeads. Our thing is the tech aspect of it, and he really didn't have anything that he was doing. But the phone is always that lifeline that helps keep you connected. So that's always something that you're going to want to have. And as a cyclist, I do want to kind of make note of one point that he has there. He says, "I don't wear headphones as I want to hear what's going on around me."
Bingo.
Excellent point.
That was the exact same point I was going to bring up, but not from a cyclist point of view. Even when you're caching in the city, don't wear headphones. You got to pay attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah, now I get so bored if I don't have my podcast going, so I do something that I probably shouldn't do, which is use an A2DP headset, but I don't use one of the stereo ones, and I make sure that whatever I get is not isolating, and you definitely do not want noise canceling, because that will block out all of those outside noises. So by doing a mono earpiece, I leave one ear open, so and I always keep whatever side that is as the side toward traffic. And that way you're a little bit safer. It's one of those things, if I don't have podcasts going while I'm walking or whatever, I go a little stir crazy if I'm on my own, and it's not very good. So well, I have to have something.
If you're going to wear earbuds or headphones, you keep one ear clear at least.
Absolutely, and it's not too tough to do if you're using the standard
Mm-hmm.
in-the-ear buds or even the over-the-ear type of headsets usually will work, where you can take one and just kind of loop it over your ear. You can tuck it down in the back, and if it's an older headset that you're not going to really care about, you can usually just clip that line. Just make sure that you're not going to short out the leads, because I have heard of people frying Walkmans and such by shorting out those headset leads.
Walkmans. Wow, you
Yes.
just dated yourself.
I did, but and that's the thing too, is I haven't heard of anyone doing that since.
Okay.
But another factor is that if you have like the Zunes that use the FM radios,
Mm-hmm.
the antenna from your headset, or the wires in your headset, actually act as the antenna, and clipping the one would actually impede your FM antenna performance.
Yeah, that's true. Uh, one of the other things is the Bluetooth headsets. Typically, they just go over one ear, and most new smartphones will send their audio out to them, so you can listen in just one ear wirelessly.
Yeah, that's the headset that I was talking about
Okay.
earlier. Was a A2DP is what you're looking for. As long as it's an A2DP headset, and most of the new headsets are. Not all are. If you get one of the cheap $30 ones, it's not A2DP most likely, and there's a lot of those things that are actually pretty nice, but they don't do music, which is that A2DP. So
Oh, that's true. Okay.
make sure that
I
you're
was thinking
getting that A2DP.
is more stereo than music, but you're right. It is music. It's not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just phone calls.
Right, right. And again, you might want to go back and look at our old episode that we did on podcast consumption, and we
Mhm.
did talk a little bit there about the headphones. A lot has changed since then, so take it with that 2-year-old history of the tech industry grain of salt. But we are talking about phones, and we have a voicemail that someone called in, so why don't we head to that one right now?
Hey guys, Corey here, aka Stevens ad infinitum. Just wanted to comment on the show tonight. I love going caching solo, as well as going caching with friends and family. Each has its own spot, and I know you're probably going to get a lot of calls talking about, the safety. Make sure you take lots of water. Make sure you let everybody know where you're going. Make sure you have a, if you have a location device like a Spot Go or something like that, and but I want to talk about the fact that I use caching alone as kind of my escape, and it's really kind of nice sometimes. In a busy world, you kind of need a break every once in a while, and I don't do any of the 4 or 5 difficulty or 4 or 5 terrain level caches when I go out, but I do go out in some that get me away and just get me on the outskirts of the city, pull me away from even cell service sometimes, just to kind of get an escape, and I love doing that because it lets me break away, when I get away from the traffic and the homes and the people, and just get back into nature. It's almost kind of like a spiritual release and a reset for me. And it's one of the things that I use almost as like a therapy. And, it's not just a caching that, it is the end goal. It's the journey there and to. And, I make sure that it's far enough away where I can just kind of get out and I can think and I can breathe and I can just kind of sort things. And so the journey too is kind of just a way to relax and let go and cycle through things that are going on in my life. Things can get really busy and hectic, and that's what I love about caching is it kind of gets me away and just kind of allows me to release. There's a time to go caching with family, which I'm going to do this weekend while we go down to the Grand Canyon. There's a time to go caching with friends, which I love, especially when we start doing the 4 and 5 terrain difficulty caches. But those times I just need a break and just to think and reflect. I love to go caching by myself, and sometimes I get just enough time to maybe hit the outskirts of town, and even I found a couple of little solace points inside my town, which are kind of nice. But you know, there's a time and a place for every facet of caching, and you can really utilize those things to kind of get a break and release that you need. At least for me, I use it. And so I love what you guys are doing with the show, and thanks for having me. And, you know, keep on caching, guys. Have a great and safe 4th of July.
Well, thank you very much for that. That was a lot of great information in there. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, you know, I listened to this call earlier in the day when he had left us a message, and it just dawned on me. I'll have to go and look this up. I remember about a year ago there was a study that had been done that there's a valuable effect for your psychological well-being to going out into nature without any earbuds or anything else, you know, no outside noises. So that includes like cars driving by, but the big thing was they said don't take music if you're trying to escape. You'll find that you can recover more effectively from the stresses in your life if you don't bring anything else with you and you just go for like a nice casually walk alone. So that's something I just thought of, and I'll have to go look that up again.
You know, that doesn't surprise me at all. I personally love caching alone, if not alone, with one other person. You know, that's kind of what I shoot for. But, you know, it is, just as Steven's ad infinitum was saying, it is a release. It's really nice. Now, I do make sure people know where I am because, well, you know, unfortunately in this day and age, in the society in which we live, that's a basic concern. But at the same time, it really is a release. Now, I don't do long hikes, but I'll do hikes like we have a huge park here in town. It's big enough that it has a 5-mile drive through it, and you know, I'll go hiking through there. You're never too far away from other people, but yet you can step off the road, get into a path, and be alone with nature.
Yeah, and he did mention the safety here. That's what most shows and most people are going to be concerned about. And there are some basic things. You know, first off, if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. That's something that just over and over again, not just when you're caching alone, but always. If you have doubts whether you can do whatever, you shouldn't be doing it. If you have questions as to whether it's safe or not, just don't do it. That's as simple as it comes. But one of the interesting things that I found when poking around doing some research for the show was a bookmark list out of Massachusetts called Women Caching Alone. And I'll post a link to this in the show notes as well because I found it so interesting that someone had gone through the effort to put this out there. And you know, women caching by themselves is kind of a whole nother level of safety that you have to worry about, especially if you're going to be caching in parks and things where you know you're not as visible and not as well protected by a mass of people. So there's something to be said there. But the description of this was, the caches I'm bookmarking are caches that don't require you to enter the woods alone. They may be cute little neighborhood parks, cemeteries, and other nonsense micro cache locations. A few may require you to... Yeah, exactly. A few may require you to duck out of the site, but I've only bookmarked it if I felt safe while there. Note, some of these caches I did not find alone, but I still feel that they're safe to do alone. Happy trails. And I did look through a few of those caches. I don't think that this list has been updated in a while, but I really kind of felt that that was an interesting and valuable resource to the people in that area. And I'd like to hear if anyone else has seen or heard of any of those kind of resources. And if you have a group in your area that's a caching group, be it Gonal or Migo, one of these state or regional groups of geocaching, do you guys have a forum or something that you can post these are good, safe caches for solo? Because I think that could be a really valuable resource for just about everyone.
Definitely. I love this idea, and I'm going to bring it up here when next event I go to, and say, hey, is there anybody doing this in this area? If not, let's start it. Let's start these caches that would be safe for people to go out and do alone. And, at least it's going to get people outdoors. Maybe they'll do it in the month of August to help geocachings.com.
Well, and this would be a perfect reason to do this kind of stuff, because when you're on a streak, you really don't want to be doing that as a group usually. Because it's going to be, we're going on a streak. It's going to be, I'm going to stop on the way home from this or stop on the way to this. It's going to be one of those quick park and grabs, or I've got a little extra time today. I'm going to go find a cache off this trail. It's not going to be the typical group caching scenario. So that's why I think this is really going to be important for the caching streaks in August, because that's a good sign of the caches that you can do safely, quickly, easily for those streaks. So it's valuable in multiple ways.
That's right. That's right. Now, another area is social media safety. So,
yeah, and we actually did a full show on that, Beta 22, so you can go back and check for a lot of that great information there, one of our more popular shows outside of the geocaching community as well.
That's right. So social media safety, when you're out and about, don't publicly post about it. I just recently took a vacation. Now, it was odd that I talked about it on the show. You could see that I was in a motel room. It was a little different. Normally, I don't do that. Normally, I don't tell anybody that I'm on vacation until I come back and say, boy, I had a great vacation. I wish you guys were there. But you weren't because, well, I didn't tell you about it.
See, and what you forgot to bring with you was that green screen so that you could fake that you were at home.
Oh, I could have just taken a picture of the motel room and green screened it behind me now, and you'd think I'm still on vacation.
Hey, there you go.
That's that reverse psychology.
Maybe it would actually convince you that you're actually on vacation, and it would be a more enjoyable 4th of July, too.
Oh, boy. I don't know if you can hear, there's fireworks going on outside my window, so if you hear some pops and crackles, it's not the microphone. It's outside tonight.
Yeah, fortunately, those microphones that we've got here don't tend to pick that kind of stuff up too well.
Right.
If they did, I'd be in trouble because it sounds like people are trying to bomb the apartment right now.
Okay. Now, there are several social media apps that allow you to post your location. We can talk about Facebook, check in on Facebook. Twitter allows you to post your location when you're doing a tweet. Turn all that off. It's quick and easy to do it. People don't need to know where you are. You can post a tweet, hey, I found a great restaurant. They don't need to know you're there right at that moment.
Yeah, and another thing along those same kind of lines is use the field notes rather than posting the live logs if you're using one of the smartphone apps.
Mm-hmm.
When you post those live logs, they're going up to geocaching.com, and if someone is tracking you, whether to rob you or to stalk you or something like that, that's a good way for them to do it. If they're trying to specifically target you and know what they're doing, they can watch your logs.
Exactly.
So if you're going to do the logs, you can, and most of the apps actually tell it to save the logs, not to post them live, but to save the logs. And that's one of the things that I'll do sometimes with Geosphere, because the downside of the field notes is you can't attach the pictures. And when you're doing things like Earth caches, you usually have to attach a picture, which is just a lot easier to do with the logging on the smartphone anyway.
That's true. But if you use the field notes, then you can add all of Geosphere's wonderful tools to make those much more verbose.
Yes, yeah. Well, you can use all kinds of cool things with a lot of the cool apps, and we do recommend that you check out our shows on those apps to get a better feel for it. But I will put one caveat in here with things like the Twitter and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't try this with Facebook, but with Twitter, I have actually set up the private account where I've created an account that my field notes automatically post to that account. So when I upload my field notes from the live apps, it will post to a private account, and I give a couple of my friends access to that. as kind of that breadcrumb trail. So when I'm out caching alone, they'll know where I was at the last point I checked in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is some good information. We've had a couple of cachers who have experienced problems on the trail, and one of them that comes to mind was in the I want to say it was in the Southwest, and he was actually found by someone going through his browser history to find out which caches he had last visited. So something like this could be important should something happen. And we've actually had one cacher in particular in this area, I remember, who broke his leg caching alone and didn't have a working cell phone with him. So that could have been valuable information. If his cell phone died and someone's looking for him and say, hey, he never checked back in, they'd at least know that he was in this park and someone should go look for him.
Ouch. But Daryl, you bring up a great point. Make it a separate Twitter or even a Facebook account. You can post either one of those.
Yeah, separate and private.
And yes, that way you're not inundating all your friends with these feeds. I mean, I've stopped following people on Twitter after they've done a power caching event of 100+ caches. I'm like, I'm done with you.
Yeah, Twitter is spammy enough.
This is annoying. This is really annoying. So
yeah, Twitter is spammy enough. We don't need extra spam now from people finding the caches.
So by setting that up in a separate account, you avoid all that, and you allow individuals that you want to track you to be able to do so. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Now, and that's something that you can do from just about any phone, because there is that text bridge for something like Twitter. But there are some better options for live tracking, and we've talked about a lot of this stuff before. And the first one I want to talk about is actually a smartphone app, and we'll start with this group of smartphone apps, and that's Glimpse. We've touched on this many times, and we're going to go into it a little bit more now, because this is a great tool that's available for the iPhone, for Android, for Windows Phone 7 and 8, and for BlackBerry devices. That's its own full standalone app, but it's also built into several CarNav systems, some other apps like Navigon and the Garmin Street Pilot apps all support it. It is a nice open API that does live tracking to whomever you want to send that to. And it's kind of an interesting system because it doesn't give you the archives and it doesn't really give you the tracks, but they have introduced a new option that's Evernote archiving, where it actually you connect it to your Evernote account. Right now it's only available for Android, but it is going to be coming to iOS shortly. And I tried it for the first time today, and I have to say it is absolutely useless.
Oh, your build up to that was spectacular.
Thank you. I do have to admit I loved the concept. It took me a little while to decide if I liked it, hated it, disliked it, was indifferent. And I decided I loved the concept because it's just another destination in Glimpse. And for those of you who haven't used Glimpse, it's an interesting little app if you're using the app itself. We're not going to get into using things like Navigon because that's a little different. But Glimpse simply allows you to say, okay, I want to send this to these people, either by email or SMS or whatever. I want to send it with this little note, and I want to set it for this long, and I'm going to go to this location, and that's an option. You don't have to give it a location, but it will give them the ETA. It will give them the track line, the anticipated route, I should say, and it will give them the track line for where you've been. So, especially if you're driving to like the relative's place for the holidays, I love setting this up and sending that to them because then they can track where we are. If we stop for an extended period on the turnpike, they go, oh, well, that's at the rest area. They're probably just using the facilities. Nothing's wrong. And it gives them the updated ETA as we go along. So it's just really nice. It makes them feel more comfortable. It makes it easier for us because we know that if we get delayed, they can always check when they start getting nervous. But it's also a great thing when you're out on the trail. And you can use it phone to phone. You can use it on the web. So it's really nice having that there. And we've talked about using it for tracking participants in events and that kind of stuff. So, we've talked about a lot of the way that works. But in this case, what we're talking about is you can set up the glimpse, and this is what I actually tried today just as a test more than anything else. I set up the Evernote and a couple of the family members so they could see where we were as we walked around this lake. And the problem with the Evernote archiving of the track, it saves like a screenshot of the map. It's not an interactive map. It's not an interactive track. It's just a screenshot. And in my case, this loop around the lake is mostly covered by the little pin that says, "This is where I am, and my track has expired now." So it did me absolutely no good. I couldn't even see the track for the most part. I had a little bit of track on either side. So not something that I can recommend. Hopefully they'll improve it in the future, because it would be nice. But it doesn't do like a GPX export. So if that's what you're looking for, this is not that kind of tracking. The whole point here is it's going to give you the live tracking so that people can tell where you are right now.
Right, and we've used it. We were going to do a show, and I got caught in traffic, and gave you an ETA showing you that there's no way I'm going to make it home in time. So we ended up doing the show by telephone that day. But it works in that way, and it's great to communicate between friends. And again, it's only people you want to see, or you want them to see where you are. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have multiple. One of the things that I've just figured out that's really cool is each one of those targets that you send it to, each one of those destination people, gets their own short URL. And it will actually tell you which one is watching. And one of the things that I tend to do when I'm out doing some Ingress fun, whether just farming or whatever, is I'll take and set up a glimpse and paste that URL into the chat room just from the clipboard. So I can see that if I send it to individuals, like on Google Plus or something, it will tell me that the Google Plus people are watching, or so you have a little bit of information there that's really kind of handy. And I like, I kind of like having that little bit of extra information of knowing who's watching me when, as kind of the safety net, so I know who to call if something goes awry.
Right. Now, you said you used it in geocaching groups.
I haven't yet, but I could definitely see using it. Well, no, we have actually used it in geocaching groups. We haven't used it to really track the multiple groups. We've used it to track where members of the party are as we're traveling from like one destination to another. When someone goes off to find a cache that the rest of the group hasn't found, we've done it for some of our caching by bike trips where you're all on the same trail, just more of a courtesy of, okay, we're separating so someone can go and use the restroom. How do we get back? So there's all kinds of little ways that it can be used for that kind of stuff in groups too.
Mm-hmm. Also, kids at malls, if you send off your kids, give them a smart device and say, here, by the way, catch up with us when you're done. You can go off
one
to
of
the
the
store
nice
and catch
things
back up with us.
Yeah, definitely. One of the nice things is you don't necessarily need the data plan if you're going to be running around the mall, and you have to have the Wi-Fi turned on at the mall too, because if you don't have the Wi-Fi, plan on it not being able to track indoors.
Right.
It's going to have those multiple waypoints or access points to kind of get a feel for where it is, and it's not going to be very accurate in the mall. But that said, it still can be a great tool, especially if your mall has a whole lot of access points and has been well mapped, to find where people generally are. And if you are in the mall, most of the time the malls now will have Wi-Fi available, so you can give them an old smartphone. Give them your old iPhone 3GS, for instance, and use that. If you have an old Galaxy phone, like take your old Galaxy Nexus or something. Great way to keep track of the kids at the mall, and they don't necessarily need data service.
Exactly. Now, all of these also work for geocachers, but I'm thinking of another thing. It's summer. Families are going to take trips. So if you're heading to any of the large amusement parks that have land at the end of them, or World, this will work as well. You'll be able to track them and say, hey, I'm going to go use the restroom. I'm going to go wait in line for this ride. Come find me.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways that a lot of this stuff can be useful in groups as well as for this. But what we're talking about for these solo caching trips is this gives you a way to tie a lifeline in to someone who might be at home. And this isn't going to do you any good if you don't have someone who can keep an eye on it and kind of know where you were at the last point. So this is kind of like a buddy system. Pick a buddy or two, like in the case of Team GeoFrog, it was his wife. Send the glimpse to your wife. If you don't check in, if she can't get a hold of you, she'll have that information of where you were at the last point.
Mm-hmm.
She'll know that you're still moving, and maybe your phone just isn't ringing because you forgot to take it off silent mode or something. All kinds of good. It's peace of mind for that significant other that you've left at home, and it's peace of mind for you that should something happen, at least they'll know where to start looking.
And if I lean a little towards the negative, it gives search and rescue a place to start.
Well, exactly.
So, okay, Glimpse isn't the only product, though.
No, it's not.
I think it's our favorite.
I will say it's definitely our favorite.
Yeah. Another one that works well is Google Latitude.
Yeah, that's a little different because it is more of a check-in service at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it is another good free option, and we should note that Glimpse is free.
Right, exactly. So Google Latitude is going to show your location on a map. It's not as accurate as Glimpse, but it's free, and it's one of those options that really you need to look at.
And you also had mentioned another one called Mobi.
Mobi. Now I did a search for apps like this, and Mobi came up. I don't know. Mobi still shows active. I remember them early on in the iPhone arena, but I haven't heard from them much since. So if any users are out there using Mobi, let me know. It's a lot like Glimpse. It'll give real-time tracking, and that works both ways. So if you and I are sharing, we're both sharing our location real-time. So if I approve you to see where I am, then I can see where you are in reverse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It sounds a lot too like the iCloud Find My Friends feature, which was introduced with iOS 6. And this is a totally different type of service. It's not going to do your tracking, but what it does is say, okay, I want to know where my friend is right now. It's a quick ping. The advantage is it doesn't use anywhere near the data, and it doesn't use anywhere near the battery power because it's not running the data and it's not running the GPS continuously.
Right.
The problem is that because it's not that real-time tracking, it's not going to have the history, and there is a higher probability of errors and delays.
Right, right.
But another one that you had put in this list here was Echo, and that was kind of a real-time position. That kind of seems halfway in between the two. And again, like Glimpse, it has an API.
Right. Now, Echo, the reason that it intrigued me is it's iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, Windows Phone, and the Ovi store, which is Nokia phones.
Very big in Europe.
So yeah, it's got a huge user base there. You don't necessarily have to have the latest smartphone. So you can share your friends, anybody in your contact book, you can tell them, here I am, I want to share my location with you. You can set the duration. I want it to update every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour, however,
Which can save some battery power too.
Exactly. And there's the interesting thing, there's also a chat engine built into it. So you can chat in the app with the people that you've allowed to see your location.
Yeah, that's a nice feature as well.
Mm-hmm.
The way that a lot of these other ones assume you're going to work is using your existing messaging infrastructure, whether it's Google Hangout, if you want to go that route, if you want to use iMessage, if you just want to go SMS, that's fine too. But we do also want to mention that the carriers generally will have an option that will allow them, not necessarily you, but will allow them with law enforcement's authority to find your phone if you think that something's happened to, well, if someone thinks that something's happened to you, they can find your phone. But they'll also have typically some kind of service that you can subscribe to tell you where the phone was last seen.
Well, and what I thought of this is, since I have children, one of the services that my carrier wants to sell to me is the ability to track your children's phones and thus be able to know where they are. So
well, and where they've left their phone.
And where they've left their phone, without a doubt. But the idea mostly is to know where your children are. So that's a service that you can pay for with a fee through your carrier, and they can track that phone. So
yeah, which is very helpful.
You can't turn off.
Correct.
So, it's there whether, somebody takes your phone and tries to turn off location services. This will always work.
Yeah, well, as long as, I think if you turn off the location services, though, it will only give it the tower information as to where it last pinged the tower.
Right.
And if the phone's off, it's not going to work at all.
Exactly. But
the
that
big
tower
thing, too,
location is really getting quite accurate.
It's getting within, portions of a block now in many cases, and that's going to be very helpful if the phone is lost or if the child is lost or whatever. But the thing that I find most interesting about this option is it doesn't require anything more than a dumb phone. A basic phone will still work with this option, so that's a good way to go. But on the hardware end of this tracking kind of stuff, we haven't talked at all yet about the dedicated devices, and all of these carrier options, all these smartphones, whatever, do rely on an active data connection through the cell phone network, which might not exist when you're out caching in the woods, if you're out in the water. So let's mention a couple of products that we've already talked about in the past, and that's the Spot and the DeLorme InReach. And we've talked about both of them. We talked a lot about the DeLorme InReach. Again, go back in our previous shows if you want more information, but they have released a new version. There's now an SE, and these are dedicated devices that do require a subscription, but they're satellite-based, so they will work anywhere in the world as long as you can get a view of the sky. It's not going to work in a cave.
Right.
None of these will work in a cave, but
so don't go spelunking alone.
No, yeah, that's first rule of scum. Don't go scuba diving alone. Don't go spelunking alone. There's lots of dangerous situations that caching solo is a bad idea. But we're not going to go into that too much because it is something we've already talked about. They're great options, and if that's something that you're looking for, is the ability to be off the satellite or off the cell phones and want to go to the satellites, definitely check those out because those are going to be your best options.
Both of these are rugged options. You clip them to the outside of your backpack. You can forget them as you hike. I've forgotten the name of the cacher who recently found the longest...
Stormgrin X.
There you go. He had a Spot tracker with him. And he allowed the world to watch him as he made an 8-day voyage to find this geocache.
Yep.
And he was shocked at the number of people that actually followed him.
Yeah.
So,
and that is an extra service I should mention to give that actual tracking. There are options on most of them that they'll do an update every so often, but if you want the tracking, that's going to be an extra fee because it does use a lot more data, and the satellite data is quite expensive.
Oh, extremely expensive.
It makes the SMS messaging fees look small.
Spot allows you to send one of 3 messages. The DeLorme InReach, when you pair it with either an Android smartphone or their 60W, allows you to send, of course, one of 3 messages from the unit itself, or when you pair it with that other device, then you can actually send more like a text message with this unit.
Well, the new SE version does give you a few more options yet, but we haven't had a chance to play with that, so we can't really give you a whole lot of information. Now, we did mention earlier that you really do want to make sure that you have a working cell phone with you at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the U.S., any carrier must provide 911 service, even if the phone is not active. So there is a very cool product that's available called Spare One, and it's a phone that runs on AA lithium batteries. It's not meant as a regular, use everyday phone. This is meant as an emergency phone. It doesn't have a whole lot of features, but you can pop your SIM in there if you have a GSM SIM and use it as a regular phone. So if you smash your phone, it's an easy backup. More importantly, you keep this thing in your pouch, leave it off. If something happens and you lose all power, you take this thing out, you can call 911 and say, hey, I'm stuck here. I can't get out of this cave that I'm snowed into. Send the rescue team as soon as you can because I have no power.
Right.
So that's a good tool if you're going to be doing that kind of hike. It's probably something that a lot of people would want to keep in their car. I haven't looked at the final pricing, but it was supposed to be under $100. So it's not expensive. I just looked
online and it shows it at $99.99. So $100.
So it's just under $100 by one penny. One penny.
But you can call it under $100 for that.
Exactly.
Or keep an old smartphone with you, or not necessarily smartphone. I keep thinking in that realm. When you upgrade your phone, keep your old one. Keep it charged. Stick it in your backpack. If you're using your smartphone or whatever and it dies on you, pull out this one. You can make your emergency call because even if it doesn't have a SIM, it will still dial 911.
Right. Well, and the CDMA versions will be the same way.
Exactly.
Which don't use the SIMs. But the important key, make sure it's charged and leave it off until you need it.
Right.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the GeoGearHeads. Check out our website at cashmaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cashmaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cashmaniacs shows coming. Please consider making a PayPal donation through the link on our website to support the Cashmaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Offenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2013 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cashmaniacs.